The Bettering Others Advocacy Talks podcast is produced by Statewide Advocates Influencing Leadership Sale. We want to thank our supporters Family Values at Work and J. Badger Consulting for making this podcast possible. We invite you to come aboard and enjoy this episode of the Boat Podcast. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to episode 2 of The Boat, and today we have two awesome guests to discuss the importance of paid family medical leave. We did episode 1 with James, and we thought that with SAIL and our foundation being so tied to paid family medical leave that it would be great to bring two other guests from the same household, but they have completely different experiences. So I say the same household because they live together now, but they didn't always. And so the experiences they have are unique to them, and their disability experience is unique to them. So the way that we presented this podcast was to make it as easy and as accommodating as possible to everybody involved. And we really look forward to being able to share their stories and their perspectives. We think they're very, very powerful and speak to the importance of paid family medical leave. So with that, we'll get started with episode 2 of The Boat. I'm super excited today to have ST with us, and ST is a young adult from southern Chester County with autism and multiple disabilities. She has an associate's degree in early childhood development and is an active advocate in her community, which I think is why you've been a part of SAIL, ST, and I know that you're passionate about paid family medical leave and advocating for its passing, and I'm so glad you're here to be a part of our episode. But the first question I wanted to ask you is, how would having paid family medical leave have helped your situation, ST?
Well, when I was a young child, I had undiagnosed autism as well as some pretty serious physical medical conditions. Because of the autism, I could not communicate my needs to my family members, and because both of my parents were working full time, they really didn't have the time they needed to observe me enough to try to understand what was going on. Pediatrician appointments are pretty short, but it's still hard for me to understand how I could go my entire life as a child and never have anyone notice that I had this serious developmental condition. It's really a part of the systemic problem of our culture that we don't value health and medical treatment as a society. We have very rushed appointments due to insurance companies' desire for high profit and our shared American values that working yourself like a dog for 40 or even more hours per week is what everyone should do. If you don't work, or if you have young children and need time to properly care for them, our country views you as a slacker. I had some pretty serious infection that didn't get noticed until it was severe, and then the treatment was also severe. The first time I can remember was at 10 years old. This happened repeatedly over the next decade. Neither my mom or dad had the opportunity to take the time for proper care for me, and we were not low income. It was more of a problem of the pressure that the company puts on you to never take any time off to take care of your kids, if they're disabled or not, because it could threaten your job security. And our government encourages this and backs it up with their lack of pro-family, pro-children social policy. The conservatives say they are pro-family values, but most of their policies don't really support that in practice.
Well, I really appreciate your vulnerability in your answer and what you shared there. I think that it speaks volume. I think what you said about our American values is so true. Like, it's like we go one way or the other. Like, we work too much where we almost cause ourselves to not be able to take care of ourselves. And paid family medical leave kind of allows us to maybe do that if it would be in place. So what was it? I mean, the next question I have for you is, what was the impact of not having paid family medical leave on your family?
By the time I was a teenager, I had serious medical problems that went untreated. My mom literally said to me, I'm not going to take time off of work to stay home with you for that. In our country, if a child is not obviously dying, the employers discourage their parents from taking time off of work to care for them. As an adult, the untreated medical conditions had advanced beyond help. I am now infertile. My back is so severely messed up from the extreme medical treatment that I received as an adult because of never getting the more effective mild forms of treatment as a child, that now I may never be able to work either, in addition to not being able to have children. My parents ended up getting divorced in part because of the stress of raising special needs children without the support they needed to care for them properly. My family was torn apart, and I am disabled, and I will never be able to have my own family. Also, my mental health is really not good due to the trauma of not getting appropriate medical treatment as a child, and now not being able to have children or work. It doesn't feel great, as you can probably imagine. That is the impact of not having paid family medical leave for my family.
Yeah, and I think, ST, what you just shared is uh uh it's a sobering reality that this can kind of build on itself, right? Like you miss one appointment, then two, then three, then four, and the conditions and the situation that you're in kind of build on each other, right? And now you're in a different situation than you would have been had you been able to get the care that you needed. If perhaps your family felt that they could actually access something like paid medical leave to get the care that you needed. And so, as an advocate, uh, how would this bill affect others in the community in your mind? I know you're an advocate for other people as well. So how would a bill like this impact others that you know of in the community?
Yeah, I'm quite sure that there are other people in the community who have been similarly impacted. If my low income parents couldn't take time off, what is the impact for low income families who literally live paycheck to paycheck and have to choose between eating and taking care of their kids medically? When you meet new people in the community, one of the first things people usually ask you in attempt to get to know you is, what kind of work do you do? Are you married? Do you have children? I really feel left out and alone because I will probably never get married, because not only will I have to tell anyone that I date that I can't have children, but I'd also lose my government benefits. I would have to tell them that I'm disabled and may never get a job, and then someone else would have to commit to financially supporting me. The sad the sad quality of my life speaks for itself.
Wow, and I think that what you just shared, ST, is so powerful in the sense of what we do with SAIL is trying to talk about other issues and concerns that might impact people with disabilities, and we're going to do an episode completely on employment and the barriers that we face. And you kind of mentioned issues with benefits and jobs and relationships and all of that. And so I hope people listening heard your perspective, heard your story, heeded the words that you said, but also understand that the system in itself can sometimes really pile on to someone if that situation happens to them. And as a person with a disability who's dealt with benefits and made choices to try to get off of them, it's a scary proposition to think about doing that and what that means. And everybody has that choice. Some people, like you said, are unable to get legally married because of stuff like this. And so really a lot of these things can stack up to really impact someone's quality of life. And I hope somebody listening to your story, and thank you again for sharing it. And I'm going to move on to our other guest, Arnell, who's going to talk about his perspective on this. But thank you today for sharing, ST. I really do appreciate your time.
Welcome.
Thank you for joining us, Arnell, to continue this conversation after ST has shared her perspective on paid family medical leave, and I think that people are going to be intrigued by your perspective as well, because I think it's different than ST's. But I want to make sure that people know who you are.
Sure.
Arnell is a father of two young adults with autism from Southern Chester County. He works full time in the IT field, and I know that I guess Arnell, your job is important to you, but I know that being a part of SAIL and what we do here is important to you and your household. So I'll ask the first question that I asked ST, and we'll kind of like let you kind of share your perspective, because I know that it's different. Is how would have having paid medical leave helped your situation?
Well, shortly after the first FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, was passed, in the early 90s, my wife gave birth to our first son. Um, she became critically ill, and it was very unexpected. We were both young and healthy, and we had both graduated from college with bachelor's degrees, and we both had full-time jobs and expect to be able to provide for our family despite the enormous cost of living in Los Angeles. We had 6 months of emergency savings just in case. Um, that all went very quickly. My wife couldn't take care of herself. She couldn't take care of the baby, and there really wasn't anyone, paid or unpaid, who could step in for me right away. I, I had to take 6 months off work before we found paid help. And then I lost my job and my benefits. I couldn't afford a doctor. I couldn't afford the treatment that she needed. She could barely move. Turns out that she had gotten a hospital-acquired infection that was nearly septic. She really needed intimate help for herself, as well as I couldn't do any of the basic household things like childcare for a long time. We blew through all of our savings and then moved on to credit, because in this instance, 6 months of savings wasn't enough.
That's crazy to me. Well, what I hear you saying, Arnell, is that you feel like you did everything right up until it wasn't going right anymore. Right? You had taken all the steps to get
Yeah,
degrees, save your money, and they always say like 3 to 6 months is great. 3 to 6 months is a great goal, and it still wasn't enough at the time.
right. And that's the thing. There's other expenses that you may not see. Um, even sometimes, well, medical expenses. You've already got it factored in because it's taken out of your salary. But what if you no longer have your medical benefits? You end up paying a much higher rate, especially if it's out of pocket. So 3 to 6 months is not necessarily true.
Right. I hear that.
Yeah. So we we ended up moving to a smaller house, a much smaller house, mind you, and in a not so safe neighborhood. We ended up declaring bankruptcy, and I was unemployed for quite a while. We pretty much lost everything, and we had to rebuild from scratch. It was a really long time until she could work again. But even if we had just had paid family medical leave for me, we would have been okay. We would have weathered the storm and not ruined our credit. The, Back then, the FMLA was new, and the company used a bogus loophole to get out of even having me take leave unpaid.
Yeah, so you didn't even have a chance to like take FMLA the real way and come back and your job be protected. It
Right.
wow, that's just wow,
So
that's stunning to me.
nothing left to go to, and we had just gone through all this
Wow.
financial devastation, you might say.
And I think you kind of mentioned this, but I want you to talk a little bit about like, so you talked about the impact on you and your wife, but what about the rest of your family? How did not having paid medical leave impact the rest of your family?
Well, we lost our home. It started a downward spiral. Sorry. It took forever
Okay.
to come back from that. And just when we finally did, it happened all over again 9 years later. So yeah, like you said, you can plan to do everything right and still have disaster. We never really came back from that. It'll never be restored.
Wow. Yeah. So wait, so yeah, it happened again.
Yes. So when,
So it happened back in the 90s and then again 9 years later.
yes, yes, we had another medical emergency disaster, and 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 it was, and I'd lost my job again because of that.
So it's literally like it's just like it's like you get knocked down, sort of get back up, get back on your feet again, and then it happens again. And it all could have been prevented if there was a program like PFM medical leave
Absolutely.
in place. And I know you're I mean, I feel like your entire household, I think in an email one time you wrote to me that like we're with Sale for life or we're with this group for life. You're not going to get rid of us. So I know you care about this a lot, and I guess I'm curious, like, how would a bill like this, in your opinion, affect others in the community?
Well, we're far from the only family that's in this kind of situation happens to. Any unexpected medical situation could signal the end of your family wellness. Since becoming a part of the disability community, we can't help but notice all the people who are in even worse positions than we are. We're paying a huge price as a society to not have a mechanism like this for emergencies. When people lose their homes and financial stability, it hurts all of us. We end up paying much more for it as a community than if we just bridge the gap for individuals who have sudden unexpected medical misfortune. We have insurance for many other things that are similar: property loss, car damage, health insurance, sudden job loss in the form of unemployment. Why not income insurance for unexpected medical catastrophes? It's affordable and it makes complete financial sense for individuals and the community as a whole.
I couldn't agree more, and I feel like we've been saying this for years, but Pennsylvania is like this close to making this a thing, and we're not going to stop advocating for it. We're not going to stop pushing for it. And I thank you, Arnell and ST, for your time tonight, sharing your story, and kind of being so vulnerable and being real about what the situations are. Because I think that makes a difference for people who are making decisions about should this become a law in Pennsylvania or not. I mean, I just think in my personal story, coming from an abusive home where uh, my mom was a single mom and trying to take care of me, it would have mattered so much to have something like this. And so I can't. I know it sounds weird because it's a negative to go through a situation like this, but using it to create change is so positive, and I hope that your story and the stories of others can help create change in our state. So thank you and ST for your time tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.